I want to talk about the 4 seconds Peter spent walking on water. Not the miracle, the 4 seconds. Because something very specific happens in there, and Matthew is precise about it in a way we usually skip. Peter gets out of the boat. He starts walking. He's doing it. And then, quote, when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened. He didn't fall because the wind got worse. The wind was already there. It had been against them all night. Nothing about the lake changed. What changed is that he noticed something else. That's it. That's the mechanism. He was doing an impossible thing, and then his attention went somewhere else, and he went under. I have thought about that all week, mostly while holding a phone. But the phone turned out to be the wrong culprit. Ancient truth for the modern week. From the dusty roads of the 1st century to the high-speed life of the 21st, we're stripping away the tradition to find the heart of the story. I'm your host, Joe, and this is Monday to Sunday. I'm Joe Stein. This is Monday to Sunday. Same 3 readings you heard this past Sunday. Proper 14, Year A. Joseph and his brothers in Genesis 37, Romans 10, and Matthew 14, out on the lake in the dark. Sunday's readings go by fast, and then the week eats them. So this is the second half of a pair. On Tuesday we talked about distance, about God coming down and crossing it, and how the Word is near you and always was. Today I want to come at the same text from a completely different angle, because there's a second thing running through all 3, and it's the one I actually struggle with. Not distance, divided loyalty. Let's get the Greek out of the way early, because it does most of the work. When Jesus pulls Peter up, he says, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Doubt. In English, that word means uncertainty, intellectual wobble. Not sure whether the claim is true. The Greek is not that word. The Greek is distazo. The dis at the front is the number 2. Same dis you hear in dilemma, 2 premises. Same D in divide. And the rest of it comes from the family of words about standing, taking a position, having your feet somewhere. Distazo means to stand in 2 places, to be pulled in 2 directions at once, to have your weight on 2 feet that are going different ways. It is not, "Peter, why weren't you sure I was real?" He was sure enough to climb over the side of a boat at 3 a.m. It's, "Peter, why were you in 2 places?" And that word shows up exactly twice in the entire New Testament. Both times in Matthew. Here, and then at the very end of the book, on the mountain in Galilee, after the resurrection. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Distazo again. They're worshipping and wavering at the same time. Both feet, different directions. Matthew seems to think this is the characteristic condition of people who follow Jesus, not disbelief. Doubleness. Now go back to Genesis with that in your hand. Joseph's brothers throw him in a pit. And then they sat down to eat. I said on Tuesday I can't get past that line, and I still can't. But for a different reason today. That sentence is a picture of divided loyalty as a moral condition. Because you can only eat lunch next to a pit with your brother in it if part of you has gone somewhere else. You have to be in 2 places. One part of you is at the meal, passing bread, being a person. The other part knows exactly what's at the bottom of that hole, and has been muted. That's not monstrousness. Monsters would be easier. That's ordinary human numbing, which is available to everybody, and which most of us practice daily. Then look at Judah's speech, because this is the hinge of the whole thing. What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh. Read that again slowly. He's arguing for the sale on the grounds that Joseph is family. He uses the word brother twice. He says our own flesh. And the conclusion he draws from all that tenderness is, so let's sell him for 20 pieces of silver instead. Here's the Hebrew word under profit. It's betsa. And it doesn't mean profit the way a spreadsheet means profit. The root has to do with cutting off, taking your cut. Everywhere else in the Bible it's the word for dirty money. Gain you got by leaning on somebody. The prophets use it when they're furious. So Judah isn't asking a business question in a neutral voice. Genesis picked the ugliest available word on purpose. And notice what Betsa does to the family. It gives Judah a way to hold both things at once. He gets to keep his affection for his brother and take the money. And neither one has to cancel the other, because the money made it a transaction instead of a betrayal. That's distazo before there was a Greek word for it. Standing in two places isn't a neutral condition. It's how people do terrible things while feeling reasonably okay about themselves. Money is what makes it feel reasonable. Reuben's no better, and his version is more familiar to me. He hears the plan to kill Joseph, and he intervenes, sort of. He says, shed no blood, throw him in the pit instead. And Genesis tells us his private motive. He meant to come back later and rescue him and return him to their father. So Reuben has a plan. Reuben is the good one. And Reuben's plan requires that a 17-year-old sit at the bottom of a dry cistern for an unspecified amount of time while Reuben waits for a better moment. He never gets the moment. By the time he comes back, the pit is empty and the caravan is gone. Genesis has him tearing his clothes and saying, "The boy is gone, and where can I turn?" That's what half presence buys you. Reuben was in two places too, with his brothers and against them, and the cost of his hedging was the entire second half of the story. Nobody in this chapter is a villain, exactly. They're all just partly somewhere else. I said at the top that the phone was the wrong culprit. Let me explain what I mean, because I had this episode pointed in a different direction for a while. The easy version of this talk is about screens. You know it already. We're distracted. We're scrolling. Put the phone in a drawer. It's true as far as it goes. And I don't think it goes very far, because I've done the drawer thing and I was still in two places. I was just in two places with my hands free. The phone is a symptom. It's the delivery mechanism. It is not the master, and Matthew already told us what the master is. Not in Sunday's reading. A few chapters earlier, same gospel, same writer who gave us Distazo. No one can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. That's the same diagnosis, two masters, two places. Matthew is the one who links divided attention to divided loyalty, and when he goes looking for the thing most likely to split a person down the middle, he doesn't say entertainment, he says money. Which lands differently once you've heard Judah say Betsa out loud. Now, I want to be careful here, because there are two bad sermons hiding in this, and I don't want to preach either one. The first bad sermon is that money is evil, and wanting security makes you a worse Christian. That's not what Matthew says, and it's cruel to people who are actually squeezed. The second bad sermon is the one where if you have enough faith, the money shows up. You've heard that one on television. It's a lie, and it hurts people. Here's what I actually think this is about, and it isn't greed. It's arithmetic. Because the way money divides most of us isn't that we love it. It's that we're doing math in the background, all the time, underneath everything. You're at dinner with your family, and you're also running the number. You're at your kids' game, and you're also doing the thing where you calculate how many months of cushion you have if the job goes away. You're at church, in a pew, standing up and sitting down at the right times, and about 40% of you is somewhere in a spreadsheet. That's distazo. Both feet, different directions. And I don't think that's a sin. It's what a person's mind does when the ground isn't solid. But it is the condition. And it's the reason the phone in a drawer thing doesn't fix anything. The drawer doesn't touch the arithmetic. The arithmetic follows you in there. Judah's brothers had a plan for a pit and a caravan going by. Most of us have a number in our head that we never say out loud to anybody, and it's running the whole time. and we would be embarrassed to admit how much of our attention it takes. So what does the week's third reading do with that? Romans 10. Paul says something that should be a relief and usually isn't. The word is near you, on your lips and in your heart. On your lips, in your heart. 2 places, and they're both you. He's not sending you up a mountain or down into the abyss to go acquire something. The thing you need is already located in your own mouth and your own chest, which means the problem was never access, it's attention, and underneath the attention, it's allegiance. And then Paul gets practical. If you confess with your lips that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. That's not a test of orthodoxy. That's an instruction to get your mouth and your heart into the same place at the same time. Say it out loud and mean it in your chest. Both feet, same direction. The opposite of distazo. The New Testament's cure for being in 2 places is not concentration. It's confession, out loud, with your actual voice. There's a reason for that. You can think in the background. You can believe in the background. You can absolutely do arithmetic in the background. You cannot say something out loud in the background. Speech takes all of you. And listen, maybe for you it isn't running a spreadsheet in the background. I've been talking about money because that's the one Matthew names and it's the one that gets me. But you know what yours is. Maybe it's a test result you're waiting on. Maybe it's a kid who isn't doing well and you don't know how to help him. Maybe it's a marriage where the 2 of you have gotten very polite with each other. Maybe it's a name you haven't said out loud in a year. Whatever's been running underneath your week, that's the one. Same rule applies. It can hum along in the background forever. It cannot survive being said out loud. Here's the practical thing. And it's small, and I think it's harder than it sounds. Once this week, say it out loud to God. If it's money, say the number, the balance, the amount you're short, the figure you'd need to feel like you could breathe. If it's not money, say the name, the person, the diagnosis, the thing you've been carrying around silently and turning over since roughly March. Say it with your actual voice, in the car or the shower or wherever you're alone, and then say one more sentence after it. Doesn't have to be elegant. Peter's was 3 words, and he was drowning. Lord, save me. That's the whole prayer. That's what a man says with all of himself, in one place, for the first time in the passage. And Matthew says the hand was there immediately. The reason I want you to say it out loud is that the thing you won't say out loud is usually the thing that's running you. Getting it into your mouth moves it out of the background. It stops being ambient and becomes something you're actually holding, in front of God, in one place. And notice what happens after Peter gets pulled up. Verse 32. When they got into the boat, the wind ceased. The wind doesn't stop when Peter gets it right. The wind stops when Jesus gets in the boat. Peter's job was never to master the water. It was to be in one place long enough to reach out a hand. One last thing, and then I'll let you go. On Tuesday I told you Joseph survives. He does. He ends up running the food supply of all Egypt, and when the famine comes, his brothers show up starving, asking a stranger for grain. Think about what that means. These men turned their brother into 20 pieces of silver. They did the Betsa math and took the cut. And the story ends with that same brother standing over the entire wealth of Egypt and using it to keep them alive. He says it himself. God sent me before you to preserve life. The brothers converted a person into money. Joseph converted the money back into people. That's the whole arc, and you'll hear the end of it in church this Sunday. So it can go the other direction. That's the good news in a week like this one. Whatever yours is, it isn't your master unless you keep it in the dark. Say it out loud. Put both feet down. I'm Joe, and this has been Monday to Sunday. Thanks for walking this road with me. Now take this truth into your week, and I'll see you on the next chapter.